There we go. So official welcome for those of you that are live and everybody that's catching the replay. And we are going to be without Lisa today, but we're going to have a great time. I love these because it spawns so much great conversation. Like I just want to go back and catch the chat and the conversation. So it makes these amazing, and that's you all. I'm going to get the housekeeping out of the way, all the announcements. I'm also keeping an eye on the waiting room to make sure I don't miss anybody, because usually when there's two of us, we get spoiled, right? I got somebody else to keep an eye on the waiting room, and I don't have that today. So if I occasionally take my attention over there to the waiting room, you'll know what's going on. So this is, as most of you know, just to make sure that you know that you're in the right place. This is Leadership Global's Conscious Leadership Roundtable Series. So this is what, our third, right? We're almost through the first quarter. I'm not sure how we're doing that, but there we go. I'm Dixie Gillespie. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an author, speaker, coach. My favorite title is fire starter because I do love seeing people's fires go on. Been doing this about 30 years. So and still learning and still finding new stuff. It's, you've never seen it all, right? So I know you're going to share some things with me today that I've not heard before, and that will be fabulous. A little bit about Leadership Global. I think we've got some people here that aren't members that came in for other reasons. So in Leadership Global, it's really about getting support from influential, highly connected business leaders that can help you develop the strategies to pursue your purpose and dramatically increase your success. If you want to learn more about the supportive, trusting community of Leadership Global, designed to help women in leadership just like you grow and scale your business, just reach out. And you'll want to reach out to Linda, who can't be with us today either. We already knew that Linda was double booked, so she's not here. But you can always find Linda. If anybody wants to know how to get in touch, just go to the Leadership Global website, and you'll find a way to get in touch with her. So these sessions, the way that Lisa and I really wanted to design them was that they would be immersive sessions that include some teaching, maybe some coaching, group discussions devoted to deepening and expanding your leadership presence and abilities. The roundtable provides a curious, respectful, welcoming space for leaders who seek new avenues to grow, to take stock, get unstuck, practice skills, and lead with intention. So the Leadership Global's credo, I want everybody just to take this in, because I do think this is beautifully written. During this time together, we encourage you to cultivate authentic relationships with women around you, so together we rise. We've got some guys with us today, so we won't make that exclusive to women, even though Leadership Global is primarily women. We don't do this without you guys, so welcome. Act with courage to pursue your purpose. 3 of my favorite words. Pursue your purpose. Dedicate yourself fully to the path you choose and the outcomes you desire. Be curious and open your mind to be a lifetime learner. Celebrate each other to build meaningful memories and share the love. So what I'm going to ask you to do to start with the sharing is just in the chat, if you would, just share a couple of words about how you're coming into our work, our conversation today. Just a couple of words. I got to tell you, I came in, really revved. It's a thing, an inner state. I was revved up, and also just a little bit of trepidation about doing this by myself. So those were kind of my 2 words. Open-minded, love it. Curious, joyful, frazzled. It's all right, come in frazzled. You don't have to leave that way, right? It's all right. Excited. Yeah, grateful and inspired. Curious. Surprise me. Oh, I might not, but I'll try. I will try. Curious and tired. Curious, surprisable. You all are amazing. Love it. It's a beautiful thing just to notice this is the state I'm in. There's so much power. I always say powers, our superpower is to notice, because there's power once we bring something into conscious space. When we're not conscious of it, we have no power to change it, right? We have no power to create more of it. Once we notice it, we can create more of it, or we can create something different. So it's beautiful to notice kind of how you're coming in. If you would like, I would also love for you to notice how you would like to leave. Is there any transformation that you'd really like to create today? If you're coming in surprisable, maybe you would like to leave surprised. Maybe you would like to leave with some validation that says, I knew a lot of that. Feels good just to have it validated that I know my stuff, right? So how would you like to leave? Centered. Beautiful. I'm going to go from frazzled to centered. That's a beautiful intention. While you're thinking about that, I want to share the premise and intention that Lisa and I set for this group, which, she and I, one of the reasons that we love to co-facilitate is that when we compared, what do you want to create? What do you want to create? Both of us, our intention of what we wanted to create here was so identical. Really, I started to say so much the same, but it was so close to identical. So our intention for this group is to facilitate clarity on conscious leadership, to gain insight on how we can live and lead consciously, and to support real integration of consciousness into our lives and our leadership. So we have an acronym for that we really love, for LEAD: leaning into meaning and intentionality, eliminating obstacles and limitations, accessing personal power and internal authority, developing authentic relationships and heart-based connections. The premise we've set for this shared creation is that we hold all humans as equal in value and sovereignty. We respect every contribution, and we will remember that everyone has their own experience, choices, and answers. So we're going to ask you to practice a culture of conscious leadership by practicing awareness of the space within, or the space between. Actually, I love the space within, though. Man, I may have to change that or add that. Practice noticing, practice conscious choice, practice listening before responding, respect time sharing. I could listen to any one of you probably for the full hour, but we'll share our time. Respect opinions, aligned or differing. Own your experience. Speak to the behavior, not the person, and trust the group in the process. And transparency, kindness, and appreciation. So part of sharing the time is that we are going to ask you that when we get to that part of the session where we really can open it up and just say, this is all your time, that you use the little icon to raise your hand. So much easier, especially when I'm leading this by myself today, if you'll use that. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, which you may have to move your mouse, or if you're on a mobile, you want to tap the screen under more. Is it under more? It is on mine because I've got it reduced so that I can see other things. But when you go to reactions, there we go. So it looks like the little emoji icon, little smiley face with a plus. Reactions, you'll have the option to raise and lower your hand. So that way I'll know that you want to contribute by speaking instead of just using chat. So Nona, did you find the reactions button? Found it? Good. I had to find you on my screen. There's so many of you. I'm like, where did Nona get moved to? So we would like to leave centered with new insights, inspired. Having aha moments, exploring new ideas. Beautiful. I will keep those intentions in mind. Helena, did you want to say something before we start?
Yes, I love this last part, especially of your introduction, where you lay out the framework of the organization, what it stands for, what the ground rules are. If that were to be in writing, would you be willing to share it? Because I may like to read through that through the month, every now and then when I need it, and it's going too fast and there is too much to take notes.
That is a beautiful idea. I think what I would love to do as a response to that is to add it to the slides. I'm not going to use a lot of slides today because I didn't have a lot of prep time, but to add it to the slides and offer to share my slides with you. Would that suit, Helena?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We'll do that. So one of the things in our ask of you is to ask that you pay attention to those spaces between. And that's really where we're going to start today, is in the spaces between. So I am going to ask if we can just mute everyone. Yeah, I think everyone's muted. We're good. Everyone but me. If I mute me, things get really interesting because now we're using sign language, which I don't do well. So I won't do that. I almost did. So let me just share my screen again. Just one little slide that I think is so beautiful to have. Let me actually can't start that sharing of the screen until start the presentation. It's always a technology thing when you're on your own, isn't it? There we go. So this is just one of my favorite quotes ever. This is something that I remind myself of constantly. When I think I don't have choices, when I think I'm not in charge of my creation, when I start thinking that, everybody's in charge but me and I'm at the mercy of, I remind myself that I can't be at the mercy of anything to the extent that this person was, and still say, I don't have any power to create. So it's such a reminder that power is in the space between. The space between stimuli and response, right? So we often hear that people focus on the response in this quote. People say, I want to respond instead of reacting. So some of you wanted to be surprised, maybe challenged. Here's something that I heard first from Robert Fritz, then William Whitecloud, and now I just remind myself regularly that in response and reaction both, the power is in the external stimuli. The power is in the external stimuli, whether I'm reacting to it, knee-jerk, or I'm responding to it thoughtfully, the power is in something external. What I can do, where the real power is to ask the question, what do I want to create from this? What do I want to create from this? Do I want to create an opening where all of the things that feel like conflict right now can turn into synergy? Do I want to create safety for other people? Do I want to create a challenge for other people? What do I want to create from this? And then what I choose after that needs to align with that desired end result, right? That's not about reacting or responding. That's about taking action based on what you want to create. So there's a premise that may be a little challenging, a little new, but it's the basis of what I really want to share and want all of us to chat about today. Okay. So let me just introduce you to this. You may want to take notes because I'm going to take the slide share down so we can really talk and I can see all of you, because the downside of slide share, of course, is I don't get to see everybody as well. So this is something that my partner and I used to work in the business together regularly before he went into a corporate tech management role. Bless his heart. His heart called him and there he went. But we used to work together in leadership coaching. And this is something he came up with after we were putting together a 3-day series on optimizing the brain for leadership. He says, really, everything comes down to 3 steps. And I'm deep in my notes and I'm preparing for the next day's, event. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I'm not really paying attention, let's be honest. He says, everything that we're talking about comes down to 3 steps. Okay. He says, there's input, stuff comes in. There's a process of what you do with it, and there's output. Okay. So he draws what you're seeing right now on a napkin or a scrap piece of paper. I don't know. And I glance at it and I'm like, honey, we need to get focused. We've got a presentation tomorrow. And the next day I woke up after a little bit of defragmenting in my sleep and realized that was actually the presentation for tomorrow. He had just put it very neatly into 3 steps. In fact, we worked with a neurologist, actually a neurosurgeon who's the head of a stroke unit at one of the universities here in St. Louis. And he and I were just comparing notes after he sat in on one of our presentations. He says, the whole process that we use, it's 8 steps. But you're right, it really boils down to these 3. So these are the 3 steps we're going to talk about today. Just these 3 parts of a leadership process or a creation process. Because really, the way that I see leadership, it's a co-creation. It's just a co-creation. It's one person who says, all right, I'll go first, but we're all doing it together, right? So when we're in that co-creative relationship, this structure is so important to understand. So I'm going to stop the share. Hopefully everybody's kind of got that sketched out. Yeah. And I'm going to check chat. That's the other reason I don't like about having the slide share on all the time is I can't see chat as well. Yeah. We're doing lip reading 101. Did my sound cut out? Is that why we're doing lip reading? Or no, we're good? Sound good? All right, perfect. So here's the thing to start with. You are receiving stimuli all the time that isn't conscious. While you've been semi-consciously listening to me, I don't know how consciously you've been listening to me. I'm not going to project that. But while you've been here listening to me, you've been bombarded with other stimuli. Maybe emails have come in. Your phone went ding a few times, buzz, whatever your phone does. You remembered, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that before dinner tonight. You thought about some coworker or employee or client that's waiting on something for you that you haven't done. This is actually what creates this frazzled feeling that we get when we're pulled in a lot of different directions, is all of that stimuli is just below the surface, but you're still processing it. And it's creating an output, right? You're still processing it. It's creating an output. So when stimuli comes in, it starts creating an infinity loop of output. So just imagine this scenario. You're in a room with other people. You're thinking about something, and all of a sudden thought pops in, or somebody says something that reminds you of something, or some other stimuli sneaks in there. It's input, right? It's input. I just received this input. So input comes in, it goes into your default process. Thank goodness we're not consciously processing everything. If you had to consciously process all the input that's coming at you right now, your brain would explode. We would not be having this conversation. It would be pointless and not fun. So you've got this thing we call the unconscious, the subconscious, whatever you call it. It's out of conscious awareness. So we're just going to call it unconscious. You've got it running a lot of your process that happens when you get input. It knows what to do about input that says, I'm really cold, right? Well, you hardly even think about turn on the thermostat, throw another, jacket on, whatever it is. It's regulating things like breathing, body temperature. You don't pay attention, but there's input there. What happens is it starts taking over the show. It says, well, I can manage that, and 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 I can now start managing anything that's been a threat before, that even made you uncomfortable before, that even made you feel embarrassed before. I can manage that too. So we develop a default process. You all know that. That's just process. Consciousness happens when we start taking control of not the process itself. See, we think we need to be conscious of more, and then we get tired, right? Because being conscious takes energy. It does. Being conscious, being aware takes energy. What we can do is become conscious enough to retrain the process so that we get a different output, because that's the next thing that happens, right? We get input, the top of the curve, we process, which the brain is designed to distort, filter, delete. It deletes anything it thinks isn't important. It distorts anything that it can't figure out what to do with because it just throws the closest label available on it and says, it looks a lot like this. Let's call it that, right? So it creates distortion. It protects us, all of us. We got trauma running around up there of things that we don't want to look at, right? So the brain, to protect us, distorts that into something that it thinks we can handle, right? So that default process now creates an output. So you're sitting there, you get an input of a thought, you get a look on your face. The output is the look on your face. Now, the look on your face has nothing to do with what's present. It has to do with that input of that thought. But let's say that somebody is sitting across from you at the conference table or the other side of the room or their own cubicle or whatever, and they see that look on your face. Your output, completely unconscious, has nothing to do with them, is now their input. They got input of the expression on your face, which had nothing to do with them, but it went into their unconscious process that says, man, when somebody gets that look on their face, they're not happy. When somebody gets that look on their face, something bad's about to happen. Because the brain, of course, is designed to pay attention to threats first, to assume threats anywhere possible, because, the unconscious is there to protect you from threats. Can't protect you from threats unless it can predict threats. So it predicts threats in just about everything. So this person receives input, their unconscious process says, well, that means they don't like something. They're looking right at me. I think they don't like me. Output, they've decided you don't like them. All you did was had input of a random thought that caused a process that caused an expression, which was output, which was input to somebody else, that their unconscious process equated with when somebody looks at you with that expression, they don't like you because threat. And that goes into their output. You can see what that does as leaders. If our role is to lead an outcome, lead a project, lead a movement, lead a family, whatever it is, if that's our role and we aren't conscious, then we aren't aware. We're not creating that space between where we have the power to intentionally create a different outcome. We're just getting the input, using our default process, creating an output which we are not conscious of, which now becomes input to anyone who's watching us, which they put through their default process, which creates an output, which often isn't the output that we desired or expected. Right? It's really something you see over and over and over. So, as leaders, if we're going to be the ones who lead, one of the things I think is so important in that I choose to be a leader, to co-create by, starting the party, so to speak. We got to start the change too. It's on us, isn't it, to become conscious of our process so that we can be intentional about our output, which is then input for other people. To me, that's really where our power as leaders actually is we can lead change. We can lead consciousness. We can create different input for other people by changing our output, which means changing our process. Make sense so far? Gotcha. Which is why it's so important to consciously change the default. That's exactly it, Monica. And the beautiful thing to me is we're such powerful creators and powerful programmers. Your mind is code, and guess what? You programmed it. You received input from other people and other things, but you created the program. Nobody else actually created your program. We want to say, I used to have a client that would always say, well, we're all just products of our raisin. No, we're products of whatever process we adopted during our raising. It's because otherwise, two of us raised exactly the same way would turn out exactly the same way. Yeah. We were just products of our raising. If we didn't have any power to create our own end result, then, data in would be exact results out. People don't work that way. We all do something different with the input. Yes, I love Fred Kaufman's work. I absolutely, that book and The Meaning Revolution, if you've read that, really just great. First book I ever read that just flat out talked about, people as soul in business. And I was like, yes, we finally got there. We're allowed to refer to the people that we work with and for and, in relationship to, we're allowed to recognize they have a soul. Like we've finally gotten there. Really love that. Yeah. So the question today that I would love for all of you to discuss, and since there's just me presenting, I don't know, was that presenting? It's throwing stuff out there is what it is. Maybe we can have a little general conversation here before we go into breakout rooms. And then I'd love to set up breakout rooms so that you can have a little more intimate conversation. And really the conversation that I love to have around this is, what can we notice? Because that's the first step to changing anything. What can we notice? How can we own the code we've created? Notice it, own it, take responsibility for it. That's my code. I may have created it when I was 2, but it's my code, right? And then how can we take responsibility for changing the code or the process so that we can claim that power to create something different, right? So I would love for you to have that conversation, but I would love right now for anybody that's got anything to add that you want to talk about instead of chat. Use the little hand raise thing so that I can keep track of everybody. But I know, always fascinating listening to siblings describing their childhood, and you're like, do you even live in the same household? It's funny, my brother and sister were 16 and 17 when I came along. So I grew up listening to their stories like it was a completely different family. Like we had completely different experiences. But I would listen to my brother and then I would listen to my sister. I'm like, you two are 1.5 years apart. And I'm not sure that you had the same parents, let alone the same childhood. Like they could agree sometimes on like, well, we lived here and dad was working here and details. But the experience completely different. And they, of course, turned out completely different. Okay, looking for hands. Anybody want to co-create this thing with me and share? Jump in there. Jane, I saw your hand move. Go ahead. Go ahead and unmute. The beautiful thing, just so you know, the reason I ask you to raise your hand in the thing is it moves you to the top of my screen. Because otherwise, I don't know if you're like kind of waving at somebody else or you're raising your hand. But I think, Jane, you were raising your hand.
Yes. Good. Oh, well, it's good morning for me anyway,
Yes.
and good afternoon for the rest of you. I think it's about being really self-responsible, which takes such bravery because it's being honest and in control of our own reactions, our behavior, even as the example you gave of our facial responses to people. And I thought that was brilliant because if you're sensitive, you think, oh, she's mad at me. She's not mad at you. She's thinking about A, B, and C. So I think it's been really self-responsible and ground. And then I would put it into daily behavior, daily patterns, the small decisions. Like it's early here now because you've gone into daylight saving, I think. So I've been sitting here in the pitch black, meditating and doing all those things to be really grounded, to be really in my sense of self, so that when I'm grounded and strong, I then take other people's behavior for what it is.
And that's that space, isn't it?
Mm.
And I'm
But
so
it's,
impressed because you're in Australia, yes, or New
I
Zealand?
am.
Australia. Yes,
Mm,
it is
mm.
very early where you are.
Yeah. Just changed, I think, this week.
Yeah, we just changed
Yeah.
last week. I actually teach in a group that's based in Australia. They don't change their time. So my time shifts and mine just my time to present just did because their time doesn't change. So yeah, I knew it had to be early. Thank you for being here at that time. I love the term self-responsible
Mm, mm,
because I think so much of what we're unconscious of is, we're we're dodging that responsibility because we really don't think we have the power to change it. So there's this idea that says, if I'm a product of my raisin, or if I have these triggers, or if I'm in this situation where maybe I'm not in a leadership position, which the leadership we talk about here has nothing to do with position, but we get that idea that if I'm not in a leadership position, I can't do anything about it anyway. So why notice it? And there's so many stories that we tell ourselves to hold ourselves powerless, and we just aren't.
And so much easier to blame someone else, isn't it? It really is. It's human behavior. So to say, okay, how can I learn? How can I take? What's my responsibility? And perhaps adapting one's behavior to lead with example.
No, I don't even know that it's easier to blame someone else. I think the root that we're up against in terms of how we deal with input is it's a knee-jerk reaction to say, whose fault was that? And you notice we don't ask that when the input is positive. We don't go, who do I need to thank for that? Who do I need to be grateful to for that? Like, that's not the question. But as soon as we get input that feels threatening, challenging, negative, confronting, maybe personal, because, we're wired to take things personally. That ego says, what does that mean to me? What does that mean about me? We want to know who's at fault for that. And we've, of course, all been so, punished and not rewarded, shall we say, for claiming fault, that we're really afraid of responsibility because it's got to be somebody's fault if something goes bad. And, I've heard the things happen to me or for me. Things just happen, y'all. It's not to you or for you. It got created. Mother Nature did her thing, or somebody else did their thing, or whatever. It just got created. What are you going to do with it? Right? Helena.
Well, maybe it was created for us because we had to learn something from that particular situation. And we all come into different situations just because we are also all different and need to learn basically the same things, but with slight, that works with our beingness and with our gray zones and dark spots, blind spots is the word. That's my.
I like dark spots though, Helena. Can we just leave it at, I love that. I love that actually better than blind spots. It's the things we leave in the shadows, right? It's the things that we hold in darkness.
Yeah.
Your translation was better than the original. It really was. It was so perfect. But I think that's true. I'll just tell you my own process for that. What feels to me is truth for me. I never say it needs to be truth for anybody else. The things that are for me, I actually created. Like, as some of you may know, I had a very traumatic childhood. Sometimes I had a very idyllic childhood in between trauma. Call it what you want. But I know a lot of people say you didn't choose that. My experience is that my true self, the self that we might call soul or higher self or what, I absolutely created that. Just like you would sign up for a boot camp and say, this is going to be a really tough experience, but I'm going to get something out of it. My understanding of my own soul says I did absolutely sign up for that. So when I say my experience is it wasn't created for me, or it wasn't done to me or for me, is the things that are mine. I just feel like I created that. Now, my human understanding says, why in the heck would you do that? That was like a really silly thing to do because that was really harsh. But my higher self says, yeah, that was for you. And you created it for yourself.
And as long as we're still in the default, we still blame it on somebody else. It takes awareness in order to also come to that conclusion that you, or to that statement that you made.
I agree. Edie's got her hand up here, and well, somebody else had their hand raised on the screen and it moved. Dan does, but somebody else did. Sarah, don't take your hands down. I will get there. But Edie, you had your physical hand raised.
Well, two things. I know you're talking about blame, and I always use the metaphor of, you cannot score points when you don't have the basket or the basketball in your hands. So when we blame, we're giving other people our power. And to take it back by taking responsibility, we're really taking back our power. I want to add something else. I'm doing another TED Talk next month on will AI and technology make us dumber and cripple creativity. So everything you're saying is fitting in. But I just wanted to say one other thing. It's not just, that reality is twisted, but we don't have the filters to handle all of the input. I'm also going to be talking about dopamine addiction from our devices. And so I just want to say that what's happening neurologically is that we're hijacking the brain and it's bypassing the cerebral cortex, the executive function. So everybody's reacting so much from the limbic system and instinctual. So we have road rage, we have violence, and you're right, people are not proactive, they're reactive, and it's not been healthy. And I'm doing what I can to stop it. But
thank you.
We have to filter the input. We are on overflow and it goes into a brain hijack. That was the point.
Yes, that's a lot of, when this IPO, the input, process, output that Philip, sketched out and that we've done now so much work around. The event that we were preparing for was very much along those lines. Edie, you and I are on the same page, and I'm so glad. Yeah. I'm glad for everybody that's doing that work in the world, because it's just true that the more instantly we can respond or react, the more instantly we do, so that we can get on to other things. And we're not in that space between, are we? We're not in our power. We're in somebody else's power to get a knee-jerk reaction out of us. Sarah, you've had your hand up for a while.
And I had put it down to sort of the conversation had moved on. I was just going to respond to something that Jane said about that self-responsibility. And I know my brain works on, like, I can replay and find the chain reaction of every little thing that caused something to go wrong. And I think the key to it in that self-responsibility is, like, you found that piece and that thing, but it's still, even if it was that person, taking that self-responsibility in the sense of, I didn't communicate well to that person to where they knew what needed to be done because they didn't do what needed to be done, or like really still taking responsibility for it, even though you can find out how it went wrong. And for that, and it's funny, something Edie said, Kate and Leopold is this great movie that I love, but one of my key takeaways from it was when the guy is like, no, I'm going to call her, like, leave a message. So then the ball's in her court and then she'll have to call me back. And he's like, no, you're missing the point. The point is to keep the ball in your court to where you're the one with the power and the exit. I was like, no, you want the ball. You don't want to just keep passing the ball away. Okay, somebody else take it. It's like, no, you want the power and the responsibility and you want to keep taking that. So again, we had sort of moved on from, that's why I put my hand back down. But
conversations are never linear with me. Y'all will get used to that. Conversations continually come back because the themes are there. It's really interesting because I have a group, coaching group. Actually, Deborah was there this morning, and it came out, I'm the one in my way. I'm like, whoa. You are actually never the one in your way. It's your beliefs, your identity, your history, your memories. those are constructs that you created. You've always got the ball. You just don't know it. So we're constantly trying to get rid of it, like, and pretend that somebody else can make the points if we just give them the ball. This isn't actually basketball. There's no assists. There's no blocks. There's you, there's the ball, there's the basket. And it's totally in your court all the time, whether you admit it or not. That's the beautiful thing. Dan, you've got your hand up.
Dixie, I can't plow the field fast enough for all the seeds you've planted today.
Sorry.
Right?
Not sorry.
No, it's absolute genius, actually. So I wanted to say a couple of things about default. That basically, as children, the defaults that we create are our survival strategies, usually to either be safe or avoid pain. And so why children end up different in a family is mom never hits the ball the same way with each child at exactly the same time. And we as human beings also come in with different projects, different life journeys, etc. So for me, the default, here's the questions. Where did the default start? How did it get formed? What keeps it in place? What is it teaching you? Have you learned the lesson? Because if you've learned the lesson, then you can make the choice to come up with something else. How is the default, how does it lead to you sabotaging having a bigger life? So I'll give you an example. So for me, historically, act, think, feel. Act is I'm triggered, I'm reactive, I'm not concerned about the outcome. If I blow off a relationship, if I'm unkind to someone, it doesn't matter. Just act, think about it, and then go, oh, I probably could have handled that a little bit, nicer, more kind, more receptive, more empathetic, more fill in the blank. And then, so now I get to feel bad about it. Now I get to feel guilt about it. I get to feel shame about it. If I just switch act, think, feel to feel, think, act, that's where the stimulus and the space exist. My power is in the present moment. My power is not in my reactivity. Oh, I just got triggered. That's interesting. Maybe I'll breathe. Maybe I'll count to 10. Maybe I'll get back to Dixie tomorrow when I'm a little less, clubbing. And now I can sit and say, Dixie, when you said that to me, that really hurt. Ouch. Has nothing to do with you. It's just what my feelings are. And I'd like to get flat with it, clear it, and now I'm not holding resentment. So very different outcomes. And now a very different default. But I think you really need to understand how it was formed. Why does it stay in place? What's it teaching you? And do you own it? And are you ready to give it up? And if you get to you know what? I did learn the lesson. I'm ready to give it up. Now talk about creation. That's really the beautiful idea. And then you call Dixie and she'll help you on your new default.
You can come play with us anytime. Here's the, I love that. Are you ready to give it up? The thing that I always remind people is, the universe abhors a void, right? So we got to choose what we're giving it up for. It's like you're going to put one tool down, which has obviously served you well, because we didn't develop code and defaults because it didn't work the first time or the second time. It worked repeatedly enough that we kept the program, right? So we got to choose. What are you going to replace it with? The only thing that, if you don't mind me challenging just a little bit, I actually no longer tell people, or this has been my own work, no longer really ask, why do I do that? Or why do I feel that? Or why do I think? I don't need to know where those triggers originated. Some of them didn't originate in this lifetime. I'm carrying around genetic memory. I'm carrying around ancestral memory. Depending on how you experience your consciousness, you may be carrying around previous lifetime memories. All that stuff, I'm not going to unpack consciously what was created unconsciously. But as Robert Fritz says, and I love this, he says, we're not in the belief game. We're in the creation game. We don't actually need to know where those beliefs started. We need to just decide exactly what Dan said. I'm ready to stop using the tools that I developed out of those beliefs, out of those experiences. I'm ready to stop using those tools. And I am consciously going to develop different code, different tools, different process, right? So that I create a different output, which now creates different input for other people, which creates different outcomes for us when working together and co-creating. Monica.
Hi, so happy to be here. And now I understand why, because you're an hour early for me today. So I could come. It's almost 10 p.m. where I'm at. So usually these meetings are too late for me. So I'm so happy to be here. And Dan, yes, I'm like, Dan, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Because that's it. I love the feel, think, act, because the programming starts when life is a full body experience, right? So we feel everything so much. And then the biggest hurt is always around our power, right? If you were a child with a strong voice like I was, and you get shut down, I believed my voice was my weakness. It's actually my strength. If you're a strong feeler, right? And you know that the only thing that counts in the whole world, that's love. And you feel abandoned. You think that your need for love is a weakness, when actually your ability to give love is your biggest strength. So we get kind of turned upside down. We get things, we understand things the wrong way because we don't have the ability to question, to critically question the lessons that we learn. And so there's so much power in knowing these things and dealing with them and learning what used to be adaptive is now maladaptive and healing that, and to get to the empowerment side of it, right? And that's why I love all the feely, yucky stuff.
I love that. And here's the thing you get to notice, especially if you're a parent. When we have children, their power is a problem. The more powerful they want to be and feel that they are, the more problems the parent is going to have because they don't have the executive function to edit that. They're just raw power trying to figure out what they can do in the world. And so that becomes the problem for the parent. And because we intend usually to take everything personally and to think it's personal for us, it's personal for them, we think the kid's the problem. And the kid starts to feel like they're the problem. When really, the problem is they have more power than they have executive function to use at the time. And it needs to be channeled and it needs to be guided. But so often we think it needs to be controlled before they jump off a cliff or put their hand on a hot stove, right? So we do. We all learn that. Just true. Did you have something you wanted to add, Monica? Deborah also had her hand up a minute ago. And I'm going to jump over and have you do some breakout sessions and take this a little deeper. But I wanted to hear what Deborah had to say. You took your hand down, but Monica, did you have anything you wanted to add before we ask?
Yeah, on that point that you said that children take everything on, right? I used to say that I killed a man when I was 14. I stepped on the toes of some friends of mine's grandfather, and 2 weeks later he died. I was 14 and I took it on. And I knew it was stupid, but I took it on. Like I stepped on his toes and now he's dead. Right? So we, as children, we exaggerate our own impact in the world. And then it becomes, especially very early on, it becomes programming. And we never question it. At that point, I was old enough to question the things that was going on the inside, right? But we do that for 20 years until we get all of the executive functions, right? So we have 20 years of experience, and that's what we get triggered by.
Yes. And to Dan's point of how do we keep recreating it? Because when we create out of a belief, we will create outcomes that reinforce the belief. There's no other way for it to happen. So it just gets reinforced and reinforced, which is why I'm like, I love Robert's, we're not in the belief game. We just don't, we got them. We've got them. We just don't create out of them. Deborah, go, and then we'll do some breakout session time.
Okay. This has been like so profound. Each person's giving me like nuggets. So beautiful. So thank you. I just want to kind of segue back a little bit. It's about, again, like what Dan said about being present and having like even one-on-one conversations with a person that person may say something, but then he's like, oh, I could help you fix that. And you totally segue out of the conversation and not even talk to the person anymore, even though the person's still adding more to the conversation. So it's been a process that I'm working through of being and listening and being attentive in the presence and not being triggered outside of myself, whether to say, oh, I have an idea for you or something else. I postpone it, or I may have like a sheet of paper and I can write it down, but that still takes it out of the present. So it's still this staying in the moment with whoever, and even in this group, staying in the moment and being present.
What I love about the breakout sessions that we're going to do. It's good practice because, the way that we change our process is to practice a new process until that becomes the default.
Mm-hmm.
So opportunities to practice a new process so that you can create a new default. What's going to create new outputs, inputs, outcomes. So let's do that. I'm just catching up on chat. I so love it. I so love it. It's just so much self-fulfilling prophecies. Yeah, we find evidence to prove it. So true. All right. Everybody ready to just have some quieter conversation? I think since there are a few of us, we're going to do groups of even 2 or 3 so that you get some time. We'll do about 15 minutes. We'll come back for about 15 minutes of sharing what came out of those groups. And then that's it for us today. We get